Welcome along. I'm OldYatta. This is BB, and we're on. This is a vulnerably strong podcast.
Yes, so welcome back to Vulnerably Strong. This is where we discuss how being vulnerable can strengthen all sorts of relationships in your life. And today's topic is selling out to your partner. So, do you want to
Accurate.
explain what this theory of yours is?
All right. So as we mentioned, I don't know who saw the intro or not, but I mentioned that I'm a little older than you might would think, and just I noticed a few things. Just getting to be this age, north of 40. And one thing is that, everybody, and I mean this just culture at large and even in black culture, people are really afraid to sell out to any one thing, and much less one person. So, but when I sort of were looking at the elders in my community, I noticed that, the ones who I thought were really, really successful were actually selling out to their partners. There's certain lines that they would maintain. There's boundaries they would set with whoever they were, family, work, other friends, and that's essentially what it's about. Selling out to your partner is basically, maintaining a space for yourself and your partner.
Right. And when we talked about it before, you said, and one of the things that we say is like being together is the most important thing. So, what are the things that either person in the partnership might need to do in order to maintain what that most important thing is? And depending on the relationship and the partnership, your most important thing might be something else.
Right. We had a little warm up to the actual discussion and get our heads on right. And I spent a lot of time talking about like who you are accountable to. It's not only that, but I think it's a boundary setting, but then also remembering that I'm accountable to and for you and vice versa, right? So my trauma might not be your trauma. What I don't care about, you might care a great deal about. I don't want to diminish whatever it is you're feeling with me kind of just not paying attention and not taking it seriously. And then also I want to be mindful to listen, So it's more than like, yo, let's get the runs on later. And I'm like, nah, I can't go. Me and the wit, me and my partner need to do some things, It's more than just setting that boundary. It's also when I'm with my partner to remember to be like, okay, I don't really understand what it is you're saying. Mm-hmm. Let me focus for a minute. Let me quiet myself and actually listen to what you're saying. Because a lot of times people communicate with just more than words. You can be too frustrated to communicate with words. I can kind of consider your gait, see how you moving a little bit, and have a better understanding of like what's happening.
Mm-hmm. And I think from my side as a woman, I think especially, as I like to joke and say, but also it's true, right? I'm an independent black woman. I don't need nobody, right? But and so it's not always for women in the 21st century, but especially for black women in the 21st century, like it's not necessarily like cool to necessarily say that you're going to consider what your partner in a heterosexual relationship, especially, right, has to say and kind of putting them first. So I think for us, it's about what are the goals that we've set in our relationship, what are the boundaries that we've agreed to maintain, and that making sure that there's no external factors that kind of come and mess that up for us. So we also both grew up, we're both north of 40, so we both grew up in a time where the idea, that term selling out, right, meant like that like you didn't let society come before what you wanted to do. You didn't put a person before yourself. You certainly didn't put like whoever you were going to be in a relationship in front of anything that you wanted to do. So selling out typically isn't something that you hear in the sense of a positive. And so when OldYatta said the term to me, actually, when he said it like in the context of a conversation, I was like, please explain, what do you what do you mean, like we're gonna sell out to each other in this relationship, like what does that mean? And then And then as he explained, it made a lot more sense, right? Because I think one thing that I found is that the more we do it, the more we hold ourselves accountable to one another, the more trust we build, and the easier it becomes to understand what one another, understand what the other person needs. So it's not necessarily like and I think this will be true for any of the topics that we discuss when we sort of think about our relationship, but also like our parent, our relationships with our children as parents. Like, there's never a one size fits all model. And I think a lot of what we end up talking about is just the importance of like getting to know and love the person that's in front of you. And if you're going to be in a relationship that's long lasting over time, again, whether it's a romantic relationship or a relationship with your children or friendships or whatever, that person that's in front of you is going to change and grow over time. So being able to have a vision and goal in mind, right? Which for us being together, right? Nothing's going to come in the way of that.
That's a fact.
But so what are the things that we need to make sure we're doing to keep that?
I don't know. I'm listening to you talk. Everything you say is facts. We talk about this a lot, but I think for me, and it could just be just my personal perspective, it's like, it's like stages of understanding, right? And I'll just say from my perspective, I spent some time living in Philly, which I don't know how obvious that is or isn't. And you had this concept of an elder, which we would call an old head, right? And an old head will tell you something. And, I would always look at this like, oh, I want to consider this advice, but I also want to consider the source of this advice. Like, you know what I mean? How's a boy who got eight girlfriends going to tell me how to be a great dude when, to me, the tenet of being a great dude is that you got one woman that you're trying to be faithful to. And then I realized over time, it's not so much, old head was right, actually. The elders, I should say, are right. Your aunties, your uncles, the elder statesmen of your community are all right. It's just, it's very difficult to execute, right? And you're not gonna get celebrated for it. There are certain things that I got celebrated for at all levels and all areas. You know what I mean? And even to this day, I don't know, is this patriarchy or not? So I'll give you an example, right? If you with your as a guy, maybe this is a black guy, I don't know, but as a guy, if I got a girl or a woman or a partner or whatever, and we gonna link up later to do whatever, you know what I'm saying? If I say, hey, you know what, I'm not gonna be able to do it, my folks is like my woman or my partner, my folks need me to do something else. You got about a couple times to do that before you a sucker kind of. And the gist is you're trying to stay sucker free a little bit, but you get respect if you say, nah, I can't, I got to get this paper, or I need to work on something that's going to earn me a revenue. That's celebrated. If I put the guys before my relationship, that's celebrated. You know what I mean? All of these things are celebrated. If you hear something you don't like and you feel a little disrespected and your ego is starting to get hit, you can't, it's hard to listen. Like, it's painful to listen, especially if they're telling you about yourself. Could be all true, but it's very difficult. You know what I mean? Because most of what you hear is, I would say now, for people who were hurt or people who haven't been, it sounds mean, but haven't been successful at this, So somebody who's coming in with tons of money may not be successful at this, It's celebrated to be, in our global culture, to be like the Marlboro man. I don't know if you remember all of this. It's like one guy on a horse with a cigarette, you know what I mean? You wrote alone. Yo, it's crazy. He's by himself, but this is the boy. He runs into a town. He has successful dealings with all the women in that town, packs up his stuff, goes to the next town. You know what I mean? Does the same thing. That's celebrated. Even in music and culture, those types of things are celebrated. Basically, if you're ever like, nah, I can't do it, my woman said such and such, it's sucker stuff, it seems.
And I think that's true on the flip side too. I know for me growing up, the idea was like, you need to be a strong woman and therefore you don't need to you shouldn't need a man, right? And you shouldn't even rely on a man. You shouldn't, if one is there, that's cool. He's probably not going to stay, so don't rely on it. And I think, to your point, a lot of this advice came from older women in my family, or that I knew, who were dealing with some unresolved hurt that hadn't been worked out, and this was the best advice they knew to give at the time. So I think, similarly, if I say, like, oh no, I can't, like, I've already, my guy and I have, these things scheduled every other weekend, we're together, and it's non-negotiable or not movable, you're welcome to maybe come join us, but he will be there. It's not something that at first is accepted, and it's not because I can't choose to do something right without you, but if we've agreed on what we're going to do to keep us close, then that's non-negotiable. So I think it's ideal for us. Like I said, it builds trust, and I think what we found is that the more we stick to our vision and the more we prioritize our vision without letting external factors disrupt that, right, our intimacy grows as well. And it's easier for us to work towards achieving, our vision, and that vision might, change every couple of years or so in terms of what we write down on paper, but ultimately, right, it's to make sure that we kind of keep our bond strong and are able to be together.
Yep. I think when we talked about it beforehand, we were basically speaking on the why. So I think identifying what that even means, and keep in mind, this was a concept from looking at people who were married, so I should say, appeared to be happily married 50 years, 60 years for a great deal of time, and there's like a balance and a rhythm to what they're doing. I used to, I never could tell how BB think about this, but I'll always be like, I feel like a lot of the feminism stuff is comes from somewhere outside of the black community, because when I was growing up, women did everything. Even no matter what small culture because no culture is a monolith, right? But whatever small part of the black culture, all the different types, it's like women run everything. Women are in control, as far as I can tell. Mm-hmm. So all of this, we don't need you, is a wild situation. And then there's a on both sides, I should say, Mm-hmm. And then the whole gender dynamic situation is that, like, I also used to feel like, like two people are pitted against each other, and makes it difficult to navigate this larger world, when I would submit that we need each other, like, but if I think about how I was growing up, I'd be like, man, my auntie really doesn't like my uncle that much, like you know what I mean? I'm like, if she don't like him like this, she always talking greasy to him, why she got him around? So I would grow up, I'd be like, like, why do women, why do women want guys at all? I used to really have a hard time with that. If you're going to really go hard all the time, why are we doing it? And I'm like, why can't it just be the thing you said? Why can't you just be, frank about what you want? Like, if you're trying to have, if you're just trying to be friends, be friends. If you're just trying to hang out, hang out. If you're just trying to have some type of relations, then just do that. Like, why we gotta pretend?
I think part of what you're talking about, and whether or not feminism applies to the black community, is a whole nother topic that we do not have time to get into today.
Fair enough.
But I do think thinking about the ways that patriarchy and other archies and isms and all of that are meant to separate people, and especially the way that those things have been constructed and kind of like laid out to cause divisions between men and women, divisions within certain black and brown communities. But I think like anything else, it takes intentional action to work against that, right? Which I think is one of the things, which is kind of the point of this, right? Whereas like selling out is not necessarily something that sounds like the right thing to do, but if ultimately, we, just because we are a heterosexual couple, right, talk about it in that format, but it's not only about men and women. It's whatever your partnership is, right? If you are really focused on trying to build and live a life with someone, hopefully, right, that lifelong partnership is going to be long. And how do you build a life and live a long life with another human being who will get on your nerves, right? Who will challenge you, who will who will sometimes, kind of be a nag or be grouchy or whatever, right? Like, how do you do that? And that's where who bristled at the language of selling out when you first said it, but now I understand the concept. That's where I come to appreciate it, because it's like, okay, on the days that are a little bit harder, where maybe the communication is challenging, we're butting heads, or you're grouchy or I'm grouchy, right? Keeping in mind that, ultimately we have made a commitment to each other, and to, even on the days that I'm grouchy, I am responsible to and accountable to you, and vice versa. Then, that helps us work through those times that are like, that might feel a little bit challenging, because we have that in mind.
Right. And I would also say that, I only bring up those things to really sort of highlight why, we started out like, what is it, right? And then the why is, why it doesn't happen, but then also why it helps, because I would say this would be for any relationship, like she's always saying. But I noticed that, if it's me and my mans, if my mans makes a mistake, it's like a relationship is not, to me, when things are only perfect. We just won the championship. I got a cousin that always says that, like, you going to the playoffs, baby. Everybody's happy. You know what I mean? Yo, you got 20 and 10. I got 10 and 20. I got 30 assists, or some outstanding number. We're all very excited about ourselves. It can be a collective effort. We can be really happy. But what happens when you run into a challenge? You know what I'm saying? A lot of even the music and everything that I used to like is like, we made it out of the gutter. It's about overcoming the challenge. Even the idea in American ethos, like in the mind of America, is that, the stacks, the worst was stacked against them. You know what I mean? The comeback story is wild, but in our relationships, it's just not a part of the culture. The culture is so
songs
individual.
are not like that. The songs are, you lied and I'm leaving.
Or I'm winning, you winning, we winning together, right? So
Right.
you're not training for that. I was in sports for a while, so a lot of the analogies is that. But you're not training for that. You don't have the muscles to really do this. When I notice that's really what it is. If I'm having a hard time, I reach out to my mans. Yo, I need a place to crash, right? It's not something I would typically, before this situation, I would say I wouldn't normally reach out to my sister or my homegirls or even my woman to say I need a place to stay. That's a shameful thing, right? I would never say that. I just be like, I'll be back. I gotta go run a thing. I'll be extremely vague, which she hates. I'll be a million times vague, and then show up later like having showered and gotten myself together, when the real rap is I'm staying with my mans. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's an example.
And to the point of us being able to grow in trust and intimacy, right? How can I love and support you through something that I don't know is going on?
No, fair enough.
Right. So, and really on both sides. So, we've had occasions where, one of us has been like wholly offended by the fact that the other person, right, didn't share a difficulty that they were going through, because it's like we want to be there to love and support. And early on, we were trying to bring, only the best versions of ourselves, which
she says you bring your representative.
Yeah, we were bringing.
Wow,
we were
that's
bringing
Bill. That ain't Bill.
Yeah, we were bringing
Bill's
our representatives for a little while. That I think that comes from Brene Brown, so I don't know if I can take credit for it. But But that's exhausting, right? You can't only bring your like put together professional representative all the time. Like when you're really going through something, and this is the person you're supposed to be able to lean on. And again, like whether it's your significant other or a best friendship or whatever, right? You should be able to come and bring your full self, your messy self, your angry self, your frustrated self, right? Your loving self, like all the selves. And so, you know, I was like, I don't want you to go somewhere else and you know, get yourself together. Like, come here and get yourself together.
That's sexy. That's hot. I'm focused. I'm focused up. I'm on my game right now. But I mean, that's the thing. I can tell my mans, but I can't tell my John. And if I tell my John, I don't know, my woman, I don't know how you would take this, but it's like I'm waiting to see you lose respect for me. You know what I mean? I could have made $1 million last week. This week, it's hard time, son. I can't even get this. This car might get repoed or something. You know what I mean? It might be, but I'm gonna land it. She's saying it's a tangent. I'm gonna land it. You know, that difficulty, like, doesn't come to your partner actually. And I something she said that really started this tangent strong is that I feel like when I was dealing with women a lot of times before her, what was remembered is that if you love me for everything. And I had someone tell me once, like you know, one of the reasons why there are relationships, like, you know, my question earlier was why even do this? You don't even like guys. You now get to be the worst person that you could possibly be. And it's like, yo, he's not going to go anywhere because he made you a promise, you know? And I feel like guys have a way of doing that too, where it's kind of like, oh, well, she loved me. You know, I mean, I stepped out on accident, you know, but she loved me. So it ain't about that. You know, it's about, no, that's not what I mean, those are the things where you're not really bringing yourself. And we actually had like 2 examples. I don't know if you wanted to. Okay, that's fair. Fair enough.
But to your point, that's where the holding each other accountable is, right? So yes, I will love you through everything, but also if you're constantly coming with your worst self, or I'm constantly coming with my worst self, right? That's where it's time to be like, listen, you know, this is now, you know, the 3rd day of you being in this bad mood and snapping at me. Yeah. I love you. But you need to work some of this out, or you know, I've been trying to counsel you through this, you know, do you need to speak to somebody else who can help you work, you know, if talking to me about whatever isn't working, right? And vice versa. Like, okay, you know, when, you know, you to me is like, okay, you told me you wanted me to tell you the thing, but you keep cutting me off. Yeah, I do. I'm an interrupter.
Which, you know, I got some nerve. Yeah. I'm a big time interrupter. Yeah. I'm like first team all varsity.
Right. So it's not about like, yes, we love each other conditional. I will love you through anything. But I think the holding each other accountable part on both sides, that full selling out, is I welcome you to hold me accountable to the things I said I was going to do and to who I said I want to be. And you welcome me to hold you accountable. And that's, you know, and it's mutual. And so when it happens, neither one of us is going to like flip out or wild out, because that's part of this, is that we've agreed that it is okay to, you know, to hold each other accountable respectfully, right? Yeah.
Well, I only even brought that up to show that there's a positive cycle and a negative cycle. So the negative cycle we just talked about, it's like you're not really bringing everything to the table. You're not bringing all of you, as she'll say. And then also, you're not listening, right? Because you're having a conversation to be defensive. You know, you seen this text, that's not what that was. Like, you're being super defensive. You're not really selling out. You know, like people will sell out for a job. Like, they'd be like, no, I have to. You could get fired tomorrow. They'll hire somebody super quick. But you will kill yourself for this job. I'm pointing at me as well, right? You'll kill yourself for your family. That mama said, man, you know, forget you. Mama said this. I got to ride out for mommy or auntie, you know? They'll kill themselves for the block or the chick or the kids. But very rarely will you do it for the other person. So, you know, I feel like we covered the negative part. On the positive part, there's also another cycle, right? I come humbly, hey, I'm gutted, right? I'm not doing well at the moment. Can you help me? You would go to your friend, and then you guys get into this cycle with you and your friend, and he does you a solid. You love him forever. It works the same way with your partner. You know what I mean? if you needed a job and your man's head gave you a job, that is my man's. There's certain things people can do. We like, oh, forever. There's nothing. They could be the worst human being. It doesn't matter. That is my folks, my brother, And it's the same way in a partnership. It's like, hey, I'm gutted. If you are listening at that time, because there's listening and there's listening, right? If you're listening at that time and you can see what the person is coming with, now you can be accountable for that person. Right. You know what I mean? You can show up for that person. Right. Is how you hear that. Mm-hmm. And then also, if you're maybe not in a vulnerable state, but someone else is, or you've made a mistake, because this is the thing. Relationships, I don't care who you are. This is a whole joke where like guys always messing up and women are holding you accountable. It's not true. It's just like everybody runs into trouble, and there's times you're gonna need to be accountable.
Yeah, we're human. Humans do human stuff.
So it makes sense that you want to train. You wanna be ready to manage that situation. She may do something that is causing me anxiety or upsets me or whatever. Not talking about it is going to lead to the death version of the spiral. Being like, hey, man, let me get your ear for a second. How such and such played out really bothers me or wherever. And I've always felt, I should say, this is a fact. You can research it, right? That you are not a sucker for being honest. I feel like being honest, but like not honest to hurt. But
Well, I would say, honest, but also taking care with your words, right? I think the goal is to communicate and to be honest in order to come closer and to come to a better sense of understanding. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Well, because, some people use honesty like, I'm just being honest. You suck. Like, that ain't particularly helpful.
It's not to jab.
Yeah. More honesty be like, yeah, you really weren't good at this, but you know what? We can work on this. Like that. That's what I tell her all the time. It's like, my way is like, all right, this is a terrible situation. Let's share the pain and figure out a way out. It sucks for everybody. like that's how I look at it. It sucks for me. It sucks for you. We're gonna figure this out. Mm-hmm. But what happens is like if I can tell her I'm really gutted. I spent all there's context to it. How I could be up $1 million yesterday and I'm broke now. There's got to be a story there, right? If I can share my story, I have trust in her. If she don't kick me when I'm down, I would say, and then the next time she has a story to tell, I got the patience. I got my needs met a little bit. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I just feel like so much of the relationship is just not like what feels good right now is probably how I would say. Mm-hmm. It's like playing the long game, Mm-hmm. Now that I trust you, it's like all these little things. You can die by 1,000 cuts, but you can build with 1,000 little bricks too. That's true. And, I now have a greater intimacy with her because of those things, Mm-hmm. And it could seem silly. Like I really need to check the oil of the car. I really need to check the car. The oil's full, dog. I really need to check. It might not be about the oil, right. Man. How are we gonna get to the
and
oil
I think
level?
If I know that, the oil seems to be causing him anxiety, even if I know I can see the gauge is fine, or I know it's like, okay, if it's going to help us, get on the road and get to where we need to go in time, let's go check the oil again, right? If that's going to alleviate. Right. So yeah, I think we can, if we had to summarize, I would say the definition, right? Selling out to your partner is just bringing your full self, right? As a partner or person in a relationship, making it comfortable for the person and safe for the person to bring their full self, being willing to allow the other person to hold you accountable, and
that's big for me,
and holding the other person accountable, and that those things create, I really would say, I feel like those things alone create a sense of trust and intimacy that just, continues to kind of build from there. And it makes it easier to do as time goes on.
I would say safety as well. Like you feel safe with that person. And if something else comes up, if we were able to handle the small issue, now let's try a bigger one. Now when it seems like the world is really, really falling, you can get your Dick and Jane on crazy, where it's like one of my favorite movies. Stuff happens to a couple. But anyway, I'd be curious to see what anybody else thinks about this. I don't know if this is like something players know already.
Would you sell out to a partner or in a
Do we know this? Is this obvious?
Right.
It ain't obvious
right.
to me.
Is it are we just figuring this out at 40 something? Yeah, well, thank you for listening and watching, and hopefully you'll tune into us again.
All right, later.